Welcome back to Talking Winter Ops. I'm Rick Nelson, and I'll be your host for the 2025 National Winter Maintenance and Road Weather Briefing Series. This is our opportunity to catch up with our partners in winter maintenance and road weather to find out what they've been working on this past year and what they're planning for the future. These briefings are a way to see if their work might fit into your operation. But before we get started, it's important to give a shout out to the briefing sponsors, starting with the AASHTO Winter Weather Management Technical Service Program, who sponsors Talkin' Winter Ops. Their parent AASHTO committee, the Committee on Maintenance, and their close ties with the Maintenance Operations Technical Working Group, and of course the state DOTs, whose yearly contribution to the Winter Weather Management Technical Service Program make all this possible. So sit back and listen in on this winter maintenance and road weather briefing. Dr. Brittany Welsh, you're with NCAR.
Yes,
You're
sir.
a postdoc fellow.
A couple months ago.
Oh, really? Congratulations.
Yes,
You-
thank you.
You're getting yourself all settled in?
I am getting settled in. I mean, I say a couple months, but it's almost been a year now, which really seems kind of fast. Things are moving very quickly.
Indeed it does. And you're also part of the American Meteorological Society. What committee is it there that you're a part of?
It was formerly known as the Intelligent Transportation Systems and Surface Transportation Committee. However, we have decided to rename the committee to align more with other transportation related agencies and for simplicity as well.
Yeah, okay. And I should also mention that you have taken Amanda's place as the liaison to the Winter Weather Management Technical Service Program, the AASHTO program. Welcome aboard. It's good to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to take the role and see what everyone does and what they're doing and contribute to the conversation and the
Well,
science.
there's an awful lot taking place right now, that's for sure. So Brittany, speaking of that, what's happening over at the AMS?
Just kind of a quick rundown of what we've been doing the past year and the past couple months since we had our kind of big meeting at AMS Annual. One of the biggest things that we just talked about is we're changing our name for simplicity. It was easier to communicate with collaborators and with kind of the general audience if we were to align ourselves with other transportation related committees. So we're officially moving to the name Road Weather and Technology Committee. So I think an abbreviation would be maybe Road Wix T or something like that. We're kind of playing around with different abbreviations for now, but we do think this will help us communicate what we do and what the committee is better to people that we would like to either add on as members or just observers.
Hmm.
And kind of a brief overview of what our committee is. We're part of this kind of bigger umbrella that's called the Board of Enterprise Economic Development, and we're also part of the Commission of Weather, Water, and Climate. That's quite the mouthful, but mainly our goal as the Road Weather and Technology Committee is to essentially be this bridge, be the connection between the weather and the transportation community so that we can all support the investment and benefit of the public and especially drivers as they're going on this country's huge transportation network, and especially as we're transitioning into new forms of technology, whether that's automated vehicles, electric vehicles, hydrogen fueled vehicles, and things like that, and trying to figure out how can we improve safety while reducing financial and economic costs during these adverse weather conditions and surface transportation kind of maintenance issues. And so I'll quickly go over some of our current initiatives. Similar to some previous years, we have still been trying to do website updates where we can have our meeting minutes and meeting notes on the AMS website such that everyone can have access to see what's going on, what we've discussed in our quarterly meetings, and if they're able to maybe contribute or join as an observer. Just give people a place that we can point to as like this is what our committee is doing and these are the initiatives we're currently working on and our progress in those initiatives. We are still interacting with other beat committees to have joint sessions at the AMS annual conference, which I'll talk about in a second. We're looking forward to hosting a joint conference with the energy and transportation sector, or transportation sessions, such that we can kind of figure out what this future of electric vehicles, adverse weather, and then the transportation sector looks like.
Brittany,
Yes.
what is a bead committee?
So that is a great
I
question.
hate to put you on the spot, but
You stumped me there on what the abbreviation means. I don't
okay.
remember off the top of my head. However, essentially AMS, you can think of AMS as the bigger umbrella. And under the umbrella of AMS, you have these different committees that are under BEAD. And BEAD essentially you can have transportation, you can have energy, like these different committees that'll work towards initiatives and collaborate across sector, across interdisciplinary activities. So you can just think of it as little tiny raindrops under this big umbrella of AMS. And I'm sorry that I don't
Okay.
remember the
No,
abbreviation
that's
right
all right.
now.
We all have our jargon, right? And it sounds like with respect to this interaction between the other committees, is there may be a transportation committee and an energy committee and so on, and there's common threads that cut horizontally across all of those. If I think that's about right, or am
Yes,
I
that is
okay?
exactly right. Yes. And we all have been making more of an effort to collaborate with each other because, I mean, in reality, all of the things that we do have some sort of cross-sector initiatives and things that we could work on, like I stated with the Energy and Transportation Committee. And then moving on to the urban air mobility, it's one of our newer initiatives that's led by me, mainly curated to my interest for aerial vehicles, particularly drones and air taxis. And then we are still making good progress on our previous initiative of making this kind of one-stop shop for research references. And what I mean by that is you have these different entities like the Transportation Research Board, and then you could find, transportation related references on, let's say, Google Scholar and other places. But we're really trying to put everything in one place that we can, every transportation related article in one place that everyone can go to instead of going to these different sources and pulling things from here and there. And also, it gives people who are unfamiliar with some of the more nuanced sources for transportation related references to be able to find those. And so I'll go into kind of describing what some of the goals for the Urban Air Mobility Initiative is, and we're mainly focusing on collaborating across the public private sectors to try and develop these aerial corridors for air taxis in urban areas. One of these things, it was really spurred, the interest was spurred by the upcoming Winter Olympics, where they're advertising and saying and actually working towards having air taxis. So these small aerial vehicles that maybe can carry 4 to 5 people, and they can either be vertical takeoff or they can be horizontal takeoff types of vehicles that will take Olympians and other people straight from the airport all the way to the mountains where they will be having the Winter Olympics. And this is expected to take place in Salt Lake City, Utah in 2030. And they already do have a website up where they're talking about all the collaborators and partners on this project. And I'm really hoping that our committee and people within our committee can be a part of this initiative. And so essentially, the issue that I kind of foresee with air taxis currently is it's a very new area. It's a very new challenge for us to face. And while experiments have been done in good weather conditions, we are talking about winter in Utah. And so it's
Right.
good to be realistic and talk about what happens if there's adverse weather, what happens when you have wind going up and down the canyons, up and down slope flow, and icing. These aircraft are much smaller than your traditional commercial aircraft, so they're much more vulnerable to these types of weather conditions and weather related issues as you're flying up and down the mountains. And so we're just trying to figure out figure out what is a criteria for these vehicles or how we can forecast when and where they would encounter these adverse weather conditions. And this really goes into some of my work of using large eddy simulation models, so these 5 meter, 1 meter resolution models to forecast wind speeds and conditions and turbulence to figure out where these vehicles would encounter issues. Our next initiative that we've been working on is the One Stop Shop for Research References. As previously stated by our co-chair Amanda, it's mainly a collaboration between AMS, TRB, the Federal Highway Administration to, like I said, assemble this big database in one space for all types of road weather and reports and publications and white papers in this research area of road weather and surface transportation. The vision is to kind of integrate resources from the Federal Highway Administration and the RWMP resources with a link there that everyone can go to, as well as state reports and such. At our last meeting, we did get an update from the chair of this initiative that they do have a partnership with TRB, the TRB Road Weather Committee, and the University of Waterloo or Alberta, and they have actually made some good progress on creating a Google site that is able to be used as a potential platform for this. So I'm looking forward that in our next meeting that we'll be able to have some updates on that and see when that site will actually be live. And we still have some challenges that we're working through in terms of linking the site to these different resources and also maintaining the site. And what I mean by that is what it will probably look like is you'll have the references and the citations all there and they will link to the actual source, whether that's, a publication or whether that's a DOT kind of white paper and things like that. And in terms of maintaining the site, we're trying to figure out who would be responsible, what the responsibilities would be for keeping this site updated and the costs associated with that.
Hmm.
And one initiative we would like to kind of advertise is we're always looking for guest speakers. We're always looking for people from different sectors and beat committees to come and present on the cool things that they're doing and kind of make connections between our committee and then the public-private sector. So we always would love for people who are interested or maybe click on our website to sign up to be a guest speaker so that we can kind of collaborate and discuss kind of some of these issues that we're dealing with, or even some interdisciplinary work that we could do. And so with it being June currently, we're a couple months out from AMS annual. And AMS, so the American Meteorological Society, has these big conferences every year in around January where you have people from all across the weather, water, climate enterprise come together in one place and discuss research that they've been doing over the course of the year or past couple years. The past AMS, so AMS 2025, was actually held in New Orleans in January, and the Road Weather and Technology Committee hosted 3 different sessions: our traditional weather and road session, our automated vehicle and meteorology session, and our decision support systems for transportation session. And each of these sessions were very well attended, and there was very good discussion and questions from the audience for this. As for the upcoming AMS for AMS 2026, which will be in Houston, Texas this year in January, which hopefully will be nice since it won't be too hot by then, it's set to be held from January 25th to January 29th. And actually, abstracts are open today, so anyone could submit their abstract for our sessions. You should expect this year to have one session, the Weather and Road session, where we'll try and combine some of the previous sessions all into one, such that we can kind of maximize participation and maximize the number of presenters that we have for this session. And if you're interested in submitting to this session, just specify road weather as a topic when you submit your abstract. And the main focus for this year's AMS, or I should say the theme, is that our session is going to focus on kind of the human drivers, the human impacts, and the human factors, really connecting all the science that we do back to the people we do it for. And then we also will be having a joint session with the Energy Committee in collaboration with some of the projects that are going on right now, particularly the CLEATS project, so the Clean Energy and Equitable Solution Transportation Solutions project, where they're doing a lot of work and discussion on what does a future look like under these different weather extremes with, let's say, 50% of the vehicles on the roadway being electric vehicles, or 50% being hydrogen vehicles, or 50% being automated vehicles. What types of vulnerabilities do these newer types of vehicles have? And that's mainly what some of the focus and some of the presentations we hope for this joint session will focus on is the energy related issues associated with electric vehicles and hydrogen vehicles, and then kind of the transportation vulnerabilities to these said vehicles. And as always, our committee is open to anyone who just wants to observe. You can join any of our meetings that we have and just sit there and watch and listen, and that's okay. We're just glad that you're there to hear what we have to say and see what we're doing. And I would like to say, like any AMS, it's a perfect opportunity to join us and join the road weather or see the weather and road session, participate in our community, and see what we're doing and all the awesome people who work there. One other meeting that the Road Weather and Technology Committee participated in was the Joint Summer Community Washington Forum meeting that was held, I believe, last month from May 19th to May 22nd. And I participated in this meeting as a moderator for a panel that was called the Resiliency for Transportation and Energy Systems in 2030 and Beyond. Very similar to some of the themes for what we'll have for our AMS 26 session. And we just discussed the vulnerabilities of both the transportation and energy infrastructure and their intersection during these extreme events. And a lot of the discussions that the panel focused on were these data needs and technology advancements. We focused on wildfire resilience and grid reliability, strategic partnerships, especially between transportation sector, wild or firefighters on the ground fighting some of these fires, and like the communication breakdown that kind of happens between those two entities. And we also focused on some of the operational outcomes. What I mean by that is particularly for the energy sector, the electrical grid in the United States is very old and outdated. And so when things go down, when the energy grid is impacted, let's say by wildfires or hurricanes, the grid is restored back to what it was instead of being improved upon, being made more resilient. So we talked about these issues of if we're going to have more electric, hydrogen, these different types of fueled vehicles that may pull extra energy from the electrical grid, how do we go forward with just kind of an outdated grid, and like is our electrical grid prepared for this extra load that electric vehicles would add on to it? The quick answer is no. And how can we make these different partnerships to kind of work towards improving the grid and figure out where we can improve it? And I think with that, like that's kind of all the updates that we had for the committee. And yeah, if you had any questions for me or anything, or if anyone else had questions, that would be great.
Yeah, no, lots of interesting things. And, there's an awful lot of crossover that takes place out there. You're talking about alternate fuels and the grid and that sort of thing. Everything is interconnected, and you just can't tweak one thing. Like I always say, every solution has a problem, right? And so, you have to look at things from a holistic point of view. Brittany, a great update from what's happening at AMS. Lots of interesting things. One thing I can say, the American Meteorological Society, the weather people, they pick good places to have their annual meeting, as opposed to in Washington, D.C. in January.
That is true. They do pick some really good places. Although I will say, Baltimore in January, it's cold. It is very cold up
Yeah,
there.
not that far from Washington. So, Brittany, what we'll do is we'll put your email address down in the show notes. We'll put your slide deck there. If people have an interest in either learning more about what AMS is all about, what your committee is all about, I would encourage them to reach out and have a conversation. We'll post your URL, right, so people can track you down, and hopefully there'll be some folks out there that want to participate and submit an abstract.
Yeah, that would be great. And did you need anything from me on that front?
No, I don't think so. I think we're going to all be in good shape.
All right, cool.
Brittany, thanks so much for joining us for this year's briefing.
All right, thank you for having me. It was much appreciated, and I always love talking about what the committee's doing and what we're up to.
All right, thanks again.
All right, see ya.
You can listen to all the briefings and other Talkin' Winter Ops episodes on our website, talkinwinterops.com, or wherever you get your podcast content. Video versions are available on Talkin' Winter Ops YouTube channel, and if a slide deck was used during this briefing, it's available through a link in the show notes, along with the presenter's email, so you can reach out and get more information. Thanks for listening in, and until next time, stay safe out there.